My name is Sarah Friedmann. I'm a research associate at PAI. Just a little bit about my organization before we get started. We're based in Washington, D.C. We're an internationally focused women's reproductive health advocacy and research NGO. We focus primarily on advocacy, of course, underpinned by robust research, but I stress the advocacy component because we are an advocacy-oriented organization, so you'll notice that towards the end of my research I outline advocacy opportunities and strategies because that essentially really aligns with the mission of our organization and kind of underpins the indicator focus. Oh, this is moving by itself. So before I really delve into my analysis, I wanted to give a little bit of background on the women, peace, and security space, which is somewhat related to the humanitarian setting space that Sarah just discussed, since I wasn't sure how familiar everyone in the audience was. Just briefly, at the international legal level, women, peace, and security centers around 8 resolutions that were passed by the Security Council beginning about 15 years ago. The first one was Resolution 1325, and it was followed up by 7 subsequent resolutions. Essentially what these resolutions say, and they all say different things, but that conflict disproportionately affects women and children, that because of this disproportionate effect, women have unique needs that need to be addressed in conflict settings as well as post-conflict. They also establish the importance of involving women in peace-building processes, as well as the importance of ensuring women's equal rights, access to healthcare and well-being for creating societies that are more inclined to peace long-term, whether it's in post-conflict reconstruction or just having societies themselves that are less prone to violence in the future. So these resolutions are implemented at the international level through some of the UN agencies you see on the screen, as well as others. At the state level, they're implemented through national action plans on women, peace, and security that states develop themselves. And the implementation of these resolutions are monitored through the global indicators on women, peace, and security, which are part of the broader strategic results framework for women, peace, and security, which essentially contains the indicators, sorry, I don't know why it's moving by itself, as well as broader guidelines. Anyway, moving right along into this one. So what I sought to look at as I wanted to kind of assess the extent to which reproductive health is captured in the UN resolutions on women, peace, and security, so how it's encapsulated in international law, and then also compare it with how the extent to which it's captured in the global indicators monitoring the implementation of these resolutions. So, and then after having done that, if there was a disparity, I planned to propose kind of additional reproductive health indicators to supplement these indicators, as well as identify advocacy opportunities to potentially make the indicator revision happen. So my methodology was 4-tiered. I'm not really going to discuss it much on this slide because I'll pull apart each step as I go into my findings, but that in a nutshell is what it consisted of. First, I really thoroughly examined all 8 of the UN resolutions on women, peace, and security, looking for identifying RH language. This is just a small example of language in one of the resolutions. What I did find is that reproductive health language and references were contained in all of the resolutions at least once, but in many resolutions multiple times. I ended up in the actual publication creating a table of all of the references to reproductive health and health more broadly in each one of the resolutions. So it's actually quite robustly captured in all of the resolutions, and of course is resultantly part of international law in regards to women, peace, and security. But then contrarily, and interestingly, in the indicators, there's 26 of them that measure the implementation of these resolutions. Not one of them ever specifically mention reproductive health. The words reproductive and health are never used in any of the indicators. It's tangentially referred to through related indicators somewhat, like sexual and gender-based violence and indexes of women's and girls' physical insecurity, but of course that's not reproductive health directly. And only one indicator really is directly related, which is maternal mortality rate. So as you can see, we're missing crucial components of the reproductive health package that just don't exist in these indicators. So what I found was that a huge disparity existed between the resolutions and the indicators that monitored them. So what I recommended as far as supplementing these indicators was really a combination of the SRH indicators for the SDGs and the indicators from the minimum initial service package for reproductive health in crisis situations. And for those of you who haven't heard of it, it's kind of exactly what it sounds like. It outlines parameters for women's reproductive health needs in crisis. So I gave sample indicators from each set of indicators that we would like to see supplemented to the global indicators. Of course, we'd like to see many more from each indicator set. But we chose these two particularly because they're internationally well known and established and capture kind of a broad spectrum of reproductive health combined with the particular reproductive health and crisis needs that are required for the women, peace, and security resolutions. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we also wanted to identify potential advocacy opportunities. So if down the road this was something that CSOs wanted to convene on and raise awareness on and actually push forward, we wanted to begin kind of outlining a strategic opportunity. So our focus would be on 3 documents in terms of perpetuating change: the strategic results framework that I mentioned before, as well as the Secretary General's report on women, peace, and security. Both of these are due to be updated in 2020 and both contain the global indicators. So, and they would also contain any changes or revisions to these indicators. So that would be the opportune, hopefully I can go back, time for change. And then of course, also, as I previously mentioned, we would like to target individual country national action plans. These are, again, the plans that states develop to implement the UN resolutions at their, at the domestic, not at the domestic level, at the national level. And they are a key opportunity because every year more and more national action plans are coming out. They're continually being revised, so there's a lot of opportunity for change and recommendations. So what the advocacy plan would look like, it would be 2-tiered, both international level advocacy as well as state level advocacy. At the international level, we recommend that CSOs advocate through the NGO working group on women, peace, and security, which is exactly what it sounds like, NGOs that come together and convene and make recommendations about changes to women, peace, and security policies. They would advocate directly with these 3 entities at the UN, which are all interrelated in their unique United Nations way. The special advisor chairs the Standing Committee on Women, Peace, and Security, who then represents the committee at the Security Council. So you have to advocate among all 3 of them if you want to try to make change at the international level. But of course, that's complicated. So we also simultaneously would recommend advocacy at the national level. We recommend that CSOs directly advocate with member states through the bodies that create and revise the national action plans on women, peace, and security. And then these member state bodies can then directly advocate at the Security Council level. And then we also recommend more bottom-up advocacy as well. We recommend that CSOs also target these same bodies to have reproductive health language included in national action plans on women, peace, and security. And the logic behind this is if reproductive health language is included in national action plans as well as in the resolutions at the international level, one would hope that inevitably down the road that the indicators used to monitor the implementation of both of these entities would start to evolve to actually capture what's contained within them. But of course, that's also idealistic, which is why we have multi-tiered advocacy. So in conclusion, I what we found, we're really advocating for adding additional reproductive health indicators to the global indicators that monitor the implementation of the UN resolutions on women, peace, and security. And to kind of wrap up, I guess, this panel as well as my own presentation, I know that as an advocacy organization, I'm always being asked about what is the importance of indicators, why do they matter, why are there, which I get, to all of us, we know why they're important, but to the outside world, sometimes they seem like just a research device. So I kind of wanted to just wrap up about and bring home the real, true implications of indicators. They're obviously the link between policy and practice. They hold states accountable to implementing what's actually in the law. If there's really strong and robust reproductive health language in these resolutions, but because the indicators aren't capturing that, it's not necessarily a guarantee that this will be implemented. And of course this has very real implications for women, and these laws were very carefully crafted over years and years to remedy and better address the issues and needs of women in conflict situations, and it's somewhat of a disservice that the indicators monitoring these laws don't adequately capture that. So hopefully this research can at least spark a conversation around that end, and happy to answer any questions after the presentation.
Thank you.